Well, good morning and welcome to session one of John Maxwell's work on intentional living, intentional living. And this is one of my favorite John Maxwell books. And it's funny because when we are at our annual conferences, well, biannual, we meet twice a year, John will always say, let me tell you about my favorite book that I've ever written. And it's always a different book. And that's because he puts a lot of work into writing these books. He has a writing partner, Charlie Wetzel, and John always writes about what he sees the need for. And so when this book was written, what he saw was a need for being intentional, being intentional. Now, I would ask for a virtual, if you will, or just in your seat, raise your hand if you've ever aspired, if you've ever been aspirational about achieving a goal, aspirational, like you really wanted it. You really did want to achieve whatever the goal is. Maybe it was, increasing your business. Maybe it was, uh, you know, um, losing weight. Maybe it was focusing on your faith or your spirituality, or being more, on purpose about achieving your goals. Yeah, we all have been aspirational in our lives. Now, I want you to think, I don't want you to raise your hands on this one, but I want you to think for a moment. Think about some of the goals maybe you set, but you didn't achieve. And I want you to just think to yourself, don't raise your hand. Were you maybe more aspirational than intentional? Meaning you really wanted it, but you didn't actually take the steps necessary to achieve it. So if I asked you to raise your hand again, I presume that almost every hand would go up. Because we've all at times been aspirational in our lives and not intentional. Aspiration without intention is a wish. It's just a wish. A goal has a deadline. A goal has a set of strategies. A goal has a roadmap. And certainly those strategies and that roadmap can be changed, right? If you've ever been on the road going somewhere, maybe there's an accident or a traffic jam and you can be rerouted. Ultimately, you're still going to get to the same destination. And if you've taken my ultimate business planning clinic, we talk about that at length. You're creating a map, a roadmap for your business and the goals that you've set for your business. But along the way, you may have to get rerouted for whatever reason. Maybe a strategy that you've talked about implementing reaches the limits of what it's returning for you, and so you have to make an adjustment along the way. But the reality is, when we get intentional, we set goals that have deadlines, that have strategies, and that have roadmaps to get there, no matter what those goals are. And so what I want to help us do in this 10 weeks is to move from being aspirational in whatever area of life you want to think about over the next 10 weeks to being intentional. And in fact, I want to take that even broader and suggest to you that if you really want to live a life of significance, you will become intentional in every area of your life. And so John Maxwell often says that anyone can be successful. And that's truthful, right? Most of the people on this call are going to be in the real estate industry. You can certainly become successful in real estate. You guys all know what it takes to become successful. That you're supposed to do your lead generation, focus on your database, make sure you stay on top of your pipeline, send out your marketing materials, follow up on calls, ask for the business on appointments. We know what all the rules are. There's no one on this call that doesn't understand that. And so if you applied those things, you could become successful. But the fact of the matter is, when you become significant, when you build something of significance in your business, then you're actually changing people's lives. You're actually making a difference in the world. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of that. So right now, I want you to just take a moment, and I want you to think about your favorite story. Your favorite story. Now, it could be a movie, that you've seen in the past that just has a great story. It could be a book you've read that has just a fantastic storyline. It could be, maybe it's a Bible story if you're a person of faith, something that you've read that you really love the story. It could be a story someone told you. And then I want you to think about, once you've kind of got in your mind what your favorite story is, I want you to think about, why does that story resonate with you? What is it about that story that's so meaningful to you? So just think for a moment, if you will, about the characters of the story. You know, who are the characters that resonate with you? Is it the hero? Chances are, if you have a favorite story, it has a hero, right? Most great stories have a hero. Even if it's a love story, right? There's a hero. Is it the antagonist? Is it the sidekick? You know, what are the characters that really resonate with you in the story? Okay, I'll share with you one of my favorite stories. One of my favorite stories is based on an old Rosalind Russell movie called Auntie Mame. That's my favorite movie of all times. And I love that story because it is a story of grit, of perseverance, of triumph over adversity. But more than that, even for me, Auntie Mame is full of life. No matter what's happening, she's always looking for something that can make things better. She's always looking for a way to find the silver lining in anything. She's intelligent, she's flamboyant, she's diverse. You know, she's got so many great qualities, but one of her best qualities is the love that she has for her little nephew that she ends up having to care for. And so I really resonate with Auntie Mame because she will always find a way. She will always find a way. And so that's one of my favorite stories. So I don't know what yours are, but I wanted to just share that to get you thinking about the power of story. Now, one of the things that happened to me years ago, because Auntie Mame has been my favorite movie for, I guess, pretty much as long as I can remember, I guess, when I first saw it. And I thought when I was a young person that when I was a grandma, I wanted to be like Auntie Mame. I wanted to take my grandchildren all over the world to explore all that life has to offer. I wanted to treat them as a partner, if you will, as a friend, as a companion, not to be their babysitter or look down on them or mother them. I didn't want to do any of those things. And so, in some regards, I just came back from a long weekend with my 4 grandchildren. And in some regards, I do get to do that. And many cases, I end up, being a partner to my daughter to mother them. But I still always keep Auntie Mame in the back of my mind because I want to be the cool grandma, the one that teaches them about life, the one that treats them as though they have some level of intelligence and not just looks down on them as little kids. And so the power of story is so important because stories shape us. If you're a person of faith and you study the Bible, it's full of stories, and those stories can help shape your life, hopefully for the better, right? Some stories serve as an example. Some stories serve as a warning, but stories are important. That's why the movie industry and the novel, the fiction industry, why television, all of those things exist because we love a good story. But here's what I want to challenge you today. I want you to ask yourself the question, am I the hero of my own story? Do I see my life as a story? Can I imagine that there's a great epic story that is going to be told at the end of my life about me, of which I was the star? And what would people say? What would people say is the story of your life? Now, it doesn't have to be some dramatic thing. You may be like, well, I'm not, trying to take people to Mars like Elon Musk. That's a grand epic story. I'm not Albert Einstein. I didn't discover relativity. I'm not doing something that is that important. But the reality is that we're all being called, I believe, to live our story. I told my daughter and son-in-law this over the weekend, based on some extended family things that came up in discussion. And I said, I believe that God gives each of us a potential. It's not the same, right? It's not the same. I don't have the potential to be a star basketball player. That is not the potential I've been gifted with. I have the potential to be the very best me possible. And I believe that that gift is from God to me. I'm not going to be Tony Robbins. I love Tony. Tony's one of my great heroes and teachers. But that is not the potential that God gifted me with. So I have to, as my gift back, discover what my potential is and live it to its fullest. And then that becomes my story. So I don't need people when I'm gone to tell the story that I took people to Mars or, invented the cure for some disease. That's not the potential I've been gifted with, and that's not going to be my story. But I do want people to recognize that I lived my story to the fullest and that I was the hero in my own story. So can you imagine what it would be like if you looked at your life as a story with you as the hero? What are some of the obstacles that you've overcome? What is some of the progress that you've made, the growth that you've experienced? And are you living towards your potential? Are you living towards your potential? Look, maybe we never actually realize our full potential, but are we moving in that direction? So we relate to each other through stories. So don't be afraid to share your story with other people, especially people that you're mentoring, that you're leading, that you're coaching. Share your stories because that's how we relate to each other. For those of you that are in real estate, share real estate stories, right? People want to be able to feel themselves in the drama, if you will, of their own story. So tell them stories about other clients you've helped so that they can relate, right? Relationships are everything in your business. The truth is that people don't really care a lot about facts and figures and spreadsheets. You may need to share those things with your clients from time to time, but what they want is to feel something. You may have heard it said that logic makes people think, but it's emotion that makes them act. And that's no different in your business. So back to story. What is your story? Are you living a life of significance? Meaning, are you having an impact on the world around you? And that is with your spouse, with your children, with your parents, with your friends, with your colleagues, with your customers, with your team, with your local community, with the world at large. Are you making an impact? Are you living a life of significance? And if you feel like right now that's not the case, do you believe that you can? Do you believe that you can live a life that matters? As John Maxwell says, anybody can be successful, but only special people can become significant. Only certain people have what it takes to become significant. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way, like with a million followers or any of those things. I mean significance, impact, meaning. It takes a special person to live into a life of significance. But he says that once you've tasted significance, success will never satisfy. It never will. Once you move beyond whatever success in any field or any part of your life is into significance, whether it's your marriage or with your kids or with your friends or with your real estate business or with your church, wherever it is, once you move into that level of significance, you will never again be satisfied with mere success. Never again. All right. So John says in the book Intentional Living, and this is on page 4, to be significant, all you have to do is make a difference with others wherever you are, with whatever you have, day by day. And we have a motto on the John Maxwell team that says, I want to make a difference, doing something that makes a difference with people who make a difference at a time that makes a difference. So let's break that down. Making a difference. That means when you come into a relationship, into a transaction, into a meeting, whatever it might be, you're making a difference. It matters that you're there. You're not the wallflower. There's some wallflowers up there. You're not the wallflower sitting back waiting for other people to raise their hand, or waiting for other people to make a comment, or waiting to speak your truth because you want to make sure it's going to be accepted. That's not it. Making a difference means you show up. And when you're there, you've made a difference. Doing something that makes a difference. Now, let me speak into real estate, because I know most of the people that are going to be on these calls week after week are going to be in the real estate sphere. Here's the fact. The work that you do makes a big difference. Makes a big difference. One of the greatest fears for people is being homeless. Think, if you will, for just a moment, your deepest fear being realized that you have no place to call home. And so I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm trying to be real with you guys. Finding your home. Yes, I know people get hung up in the perfect home and the perfect place and all of those things. But the bottom line is, home is most people's sanctuary. It's where they feel safest. It's where they feel most accepted. It's where they feel happiest. Now, I know not every home is happy, safe, secure, and peaceful. I understand that. But I'm talking about, for most people, knowing that no matter what kind of day they've had at work, or no matter where they've been on the most amazing vacation in the world, they cannot wait at the end of the day to go home. And so the work that you do in the real estate industry, whether you're a realtor or a mortgage lender or anything that is part of that world, the work that you're doing is so vitally important. It makes a difference. Never take that lightly. Never take it lightly. I know. I used to be a realtor. There are times you can get caught up in the minutia of a transaction. You can get caught up in the weeds, where people are not understanding what you're trying to tell them. They don't see the value in doing the things that you're asking them to do. I understand all that's there. But the reality is, at the end of the day, you should all hold your head high, because the work that you're doing makes a difference. All right. The next one, with people who make a difference. Who are the people you're surrounding yourself with? Right? If you're a mortgage lender, who are the realtors you're working with? If you're a realtor, who are the mortgage lenders you're working with? The insurance agents, the home inspectors, the photographers, the contractors. Who are the people that you're surrounding yourself with? If you're with a brokerage, who are the other agents? Who is the leadership in that brokerage? If you're the broker, who are the agents that you're surrounding yourself with? Right? Are you working with people who make a difference? Some agents, think maybe the grass is greener somewhere else. I'm going to go over here because the fees are less, or the split is higher, or all sorts of reasons that people make changes. But one of the things that they fail to take into account is the culture of the organization that they're aligned with. And that's so important. If the people around you also want to make a difference, you're going to be sort of pushed and encouraged to move higher up into your own level of significance. And then lastly, at a time that makes a difference. At a time that makes a difference. When is the best time to make a difference? Well, it's right now. And I think you would all agree. We can step away from business for a moment and think about life in general. I don't believe that we've ever been more divided than we are right now. And as of the time of this recording, it's going to get worse this year. I mean, it's just going to get worse. So are you going to stay in your significance, making a difference, doing something that makes a difference with people who make a difference? If you stay focused on that, then while the rest of the world is melting down and burning down around you, you won't have to go there. You can be that shining light on a hill that other people are attracted to. A life of significance says, I don't know what you're doing, but I need to be in relationship with you. Because despite what's happening out there, you're positive, you're looking for the opportunity, you're looking to grow, all of those things. So a life of significance is where you make a difference, doing something that makes a difference with people who make a difference at a time that makes a difference. So if there's something that you want to change in your current life, any area of your life. Again, it could be your career, it could be your finances, it could be your health, it could be your marriage or your intimate relationships, your extended family, your community, your company, whatever it might be. If you want to create a story, if you want to write a story that that has as its culmination significance, a significant hero, what do you need to change in any, whatever that area is, so that you can begin to see yourself as the hero of your own story and begin to live more intentionally, not just aspirationally, right? Albert Einstein said, "The world is a dangerous place, not because of those who do evil, but because of those who look on and do nothing, and do nothing." So the fact of the matter is, we should never let what we cannot do keep us from doing what we can do. There are a lot of things I can't do, right? I'm sure you would agree for your own life, there's a lot of things you can't do. But the reality is, I need to be focused on, we need to be focused on, what can we do? How can we show up and make a difference? So let's talk about action. This is, I'm going to give you, this is in the book. If you have the book, Intentional Living by Dr. John C. Maxwell, this is on page 8 and 9. And he says how to start writing your significance story. Number one, put yourself in the story. And so I'm going to read you a list of names. You will probably recognize most, if not all of them. Franklin D. Roosevelt, Helen Keller, Winston Churchill, Albert Schweitzer, Clara Barton, Gandhi, Albert Einstein, and Sigmund Freud. That's a list of famous people. We've all heard of them. 3/4 of them, as children, were troubled by poverty, a broken home, or difficult parents who were rejecting, overpossessive, or domineering. 3/4 of those people. Number two, 74 of the 85 writers of fiction or drama and 16 of the 20 poets came from homes where, as children, they saw tense psychological drama played out by their parents, right? So this is a larger list. They looked at 85 successful, famous writers of fiction or drama, and they're talking about literature, not a nickel or dime romance novel, but most of them came from homes where, as children, they saw intense psychological drama played out by their parents. And then over 1/4 of the sample suffered physical handicaps such as blindness, deafness, or crippled limbs. So what's the point of that? Adversity was there, and it definitely was looking to take these people out of their own story, but they didn't allow it to. Why not? Because they were intentional. They had a strong why. Most of you have heard about the big why, WHY. Why does it matter? Why does it matter? Why does your life matter? Why should you show up and begin to live intentionally versus just aspirationally? Why does it matter that you take control of your schedule, that you take control of your thoughts, that you take control of your actions? Why does it matter? Right? Gandhi says, be the change you want to see in the world. So why does it matter that you show up and do those things, right? You never know how well you can swim until you're over your head, right? We all know that. You never know how well you can swim until you're in over your head. So some of us need to take a step further into the deep water, into the deep end of the pool, to see what we're capable of, right? Ernest Hemingway said, the first draft is always crap, but he didn't say crap. And he ended up getting the Nobel Prize for Literature. So if you want to live a life that matters, don't wait to start that until you get good. Start it so you will get good. Start it so you will get good. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions that Jim Collins asked himself. Jim Collins, you may be familiar with that name. He wrote a great book called Good to Great. Good to Great. But he says, can you be the best in the world at what you do? So that's a talent question. Can you be the best in the world? You might say, well, I'm a realtor, the best realtor in the world. although that's a subjective thing, maybe sells X amount of homes every year or, earns X amount of money. I can't be the best, but I'm going to ask you, can you be the best you at what you do? Can you be the best you at what you do? Maybe the title, number one, baton twirler, has already been taken, and you can't twirl a baton as many times as that person. But can you be the best you at what you do? So if you are in the real estate industry, can you be the very best real estate professional, mortgage lender, insurance agent, title person? Can you be the best you at doing that? The second question Jim asks is, are you passionate about what you're doing? So that question is about your heart. Are you passionate about the work that you do? Remember, I said this already. The work that you do matters. It is significant. People's home is the most important thing. Besides the people in their lives, their home is generally their most important asset. It's the most money most people will ever spend on anything. It's a scary process. When you help them find the right home or sell a home and move to a different home, you're doing work that makes a huge difference for them, a huge difference for them. And then the third question is, do you have the resources to change your world? So that's about tools. What are the tools you have at your disposal? Now, one of those tools is what you're doing right now. You're here with me, listening to me ramble on about living intentionally, and I am a tool for you to be able to go out and change the world. It's not my words. We're talking about what John Maxwell has written, but I'm adding in my own experience. I've been at this for about 18 years now. Might have seen a few things in my 18 plus years, but I can be a tool to help you grow. Whether you're coaching with me one-on-one or whether you're just here on this call, I can be a tool to help you do something that makes a difference with people who make a difference at a time that makes a difference, right? What are your other tools and resources? There any other podcast you might listen to? Any other book you might read? There's certainly way more capable teachers out there than Angie Bell. I'm giving it my all. I'm trying to be the best me at what it is that I do, but there's many others. If you've been with me any amount of time, you know that two of my greatest teachers in terms of mindset and growth and development are Tony Robbins and John Maxwell. I could list, if we talked about money, there's another group. If we talked about marriage, there's another group. If we talked about health, there's another group. So who are the people that can be a resource to you to help you to begin to live that intentional life? Okay. What are the books you need to read? What are the podcasts you need to listen to? Can you show up here with us each Tuesday morning and participate in this? So what are the tools that you have, right? So it goes down to talent, heart, and tools. Talent, heart, and tools. So the difference between achieving success and moving towards significance is that difference between your willingness to no longer just be aspirational, but to become very intentional. Then Jim Rohn, we've talked about Jim Rohn so much in the past, but Jim Rohn said that one of the best places to start to turn your life around is by doing whatever appears on your mental I should list. I should. Right? There are probably things on your I should list that you need to actually do. And that's a great place to start. Every time we choose action over ease, we develop an increasing level of self-worth, self-respect, and self-confidence. And it's often how we feel about ourselves that provides the greatest reward from any activity. So sometimes we really need to reframe the way that we look at ourselves. Instead of I'm not good enough, or I should have done this, I didn't do that, and I'm not ready. But to look at ourselves, we talked about this in the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth with a beginner's mindset. I'm going to start today. There's a lot of things I don't know. There are some things I do know. I'm going to approach today as a beginner. And I'm going to take the necessary action steps to move towards a life of significance today, and then celebrate that along the way. The cover of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, which is a pretty famous book. In fact, we call it the Bible of real estate, says it's not about the money, it's about who you become. And so the fact is, in your life, it's not what you get, it's not what you accomplish, it's not what you achieve, it is who you become. The purpose of setting a goal and achieving that goal is to become the kind of person that sets and achieves goals, not the goal in and of itself. So when you take responsibility for your story and you intentionally live a life of significance, you will reaffirm your values. Now, if you took our last program together, that was the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, one of the weeks I left as an assignment for you to go through the list of values and determine your top 3 to 5 values for your life and for your business. And when you're clear about what those are, then you can make decisions when it comes to setting goals and developing a roadmap to achieve those goals. You can make a decision about whether or not those things are in alignment with your top values. So I will post in our feed for this group another handout that you can print that will give you a list of values. It's certainly not an exhaustive list, but I would encourage you, if you're new to this group or you just didn't do it last time, that you print that out and determine what are my top 3 to 5 values for my life and for my business. It can be difficult to narrow them down because most of you are people of value. So you'll be like, well, I value all of these things. But there has to be a few that are going to be your North Star, your guiding light. They're the things that keep you clear so that when you're making decisions about how to spend your time, your money, your energy, or your resources, that you're doing that with those values in mind, so you don't find yourself off track. When you take responsibility for your story and start living intentionally, you will find your voice. Each of us has a unique voice. Part of living a life of significance is to find that voice and use it, right? And use it to make a difference, doing something that makes a difference with people who make a difference at a time that makes a difference. You'll find your voice and you will develop your character. Character is everything. And I think you would agree that if you met someone and you were trying to discern whether or not that someone should be a part of your life in any capacity, professionally or personally, that you would be looking to find out what is their character. There are a lot of people out there in the personal growth, motivational, coaching world that are not people of character. They're just not. You might have seen before a YouTube video that you might have been looking to watch. Maybe there was an ad and it's some slick looking guy. He's about 25 years old and he's standing in front of a Lamborghini in front of a, mansion. And you might think, wow, he's selling some program that's guaranteed to make me rich. Well, I guarantee you the only one that's going to be successful after all of that is him, because he's going to take your money. He rented that Lamborghini. Right? They drove it up in front of this house, parked it, took the picture, and then they got the hell out of there before the security went off. But those people are not necessarily people of character. Not all of them. Not all of them. I'm sure there's some great ones out there. But if it looks too good to be true, if it sounds too good to be true, it's usually not true. So you want to find your character. Make sure that you are allowing people of character to mentor, guide, and coach you. And then, of course, you will experience inner fulfillment. If you've ever been discontented or unfulfilled or not at peace, it's not a good feeling. We want to build lives where we feel that inner fulfillment, that every night when you lay your head on your pillow, you know you gave it your all. I'm not talking about working long hours or becoming a martyr in your life. I'm talking about giving it your all, becoming the best you that you can be. John Maxwell says, this is on page 16 of the book, if you have the book. He says, when a person moves towards his or her vision, resources begin to move toward that person. And we talked about this before. this idea that when we endeavor to live the life that we've imagined and we take the steps towards that, that things seem to come to us. And I know that you found that to be true in your own life. Henry David Thoreau has his famous poem, if you will, on that very topic. And sometimes that resources is money, sometimes it's people, sometimes it's technology. When you stop moving towards your goals, towards that intentionality, notice how those resources stop moving towards you. There's something about you taking a step towards your goals, you taking a step towards that life of significance, you taking a step towards becoming all that you can be, that all of a sudden doors open. You meet people, you hear something, you see a billboard, whatever it might be, things seem to open up and come towards you. Open up and come towards you. And I think that it's really important to understand that we just have to take that first step, right? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. We're taking a step towards our goals, towards our dreams, towards the vision that we have for our lives. And then notice that things just happen. I know you've probably had that experience because I know I have multiple times in my life. And I also believe that once you start taking that step towards significance, not just success, but significance, that you add more value to other people and it becomes a virtuous cycle. You're trying to become the best you can be. You're trying to live a life of significance. You're trying to do something that matters. And all of a sudden people see that and you begin to inspire them to want to do the same. So again, people should look at you when the world is burning down and say, how do you do it? How do you stay so positive? How do you stay so calm? How do you stay so centered? What is it that you have and how can I get some of that? That's what we want. So people will summarize your life in one sentence when you're gone. So what is that sentence going to be? Can you decide what that is now? I'll give you another quote by Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, is one of my my great heroes of life. Viktor Frankl survived all of the concentration camps. He was in Dachau and Auschwitz. He lost every person in his family, including his beloved wife. But he came out on the other side understanding that we all have choices. And he famously said that in the space between stimulus and response is our ability to choose, right? Something happens and we're going to respond to it. That space in between those two things is our ability to choose. And it's in those choices that we find our true freedom. Now, this is spoken from a man who was in the worst of human conditions in the concentration camps of Nazi Germany. But Viktor Frankl said, everyone has his or her own specific vocation or mission in life. Everyone must carry out a concrete assignment that demands fulfillment. Therein, he cannot be replaced, nor can his life be repeated. Thus, everyone's task is as unique as his specific opportunity to implement it. So what that means is that you have been called. You have been called. You've been gifted with a potential. You've been gifted with certain innate talent, skills, and abilities. And you've been gifted with a call into more, a call into reaching that potential. The word desire, if you look at the root of the word desire, it's de and sire. And that means of the Father. So when we have a true, deep, burning desire, it is coming from a source beyond ourselves. That is something that's been given to us. And we will never be truly happy or fulfilled until we're reaching towards that desire. I don't mean your petty desires, your fleshly desires, your earthly desires. I'm talking about that deep desire that I know you have in you, that I have in me, that is calling us to want to make a difference in the world, to live fully into our potential, and to have a lasting impact on the world around us. It's said that if you look at a gravestone, it'll have the date of someone's birth and the date of someone's death. And then in between, what do you see? A dash, just a dash. So what are you doing in the dash? That's what we're talking about today. So this is very personal for each and every one of us. This is about becoming intentional and living your best story. John Maxwell says that we have two great tasks in life: to find ourselves and to lose ourselves. So he says that I believe we find ourselves by discovering our why. What is your why? And please stop glossing over that as some big why. I want to be successful in business to, take care of my family or to go on great vacations. That's not your why. Why goes much deeper than that. Those things, having a nice home, providing for your family, taking great vacations, buying nice things, that's all wonderful. I do those things as well. That's all part of it. But that's not my why. And it's not yours either. So I challenge you to dig deep enough to discover what your why is. And then that's how we find ourselves. How do we lose ourselves? We travel that pathway to significance. And we put others first, right? We're along the way having an impact on the world around us, So I want to ask you guys a few questions, and I want you to think about this for homework, if you will. To first think about whether your story is headed in the direction you want it to go by the time you're done living. So is your story, right? Is your current story headed in the direction you want it to go by the time you're done living? Now, none of us know when we're going to be done living. I believe, this is my personal belief, that we all have an expiration date. None of us knows what it is. Even people who are diagnosed with a terminal disease and they're told they have X amount of time to live, no one truthfully knows. We've all heard stories of people who've outlived that diagnosis, or lived a shorter amount of time. So I don't believe anyone can give us that expiration date, but I believe that it's there. So is your life heading in that direction? If it's not, what is one thing today that you need to change? Right? I want you to think about it, looking at your calendar, for example, and asking yourself, are the actions that I'm taking on a daily basis moving me towards my life's purpose? Or are they just distractions that are going to keep me from achieving my goals? So I want you to think about taking 30 minutes at some point this week, 30 minutes uninterrupted. No social media, no email, no text messages and phone calls. But I want you to sit down and I want you to just write out what your daily routine typically is. Now, I know it's not going to be the same every day, but you have a certain routine that you follow. We all do. We're creatures of habit. And I want you to map that out. Everything from the moment you wake up till the time you go to bed. What is your typical daily routine? And then look at it carefully. Why are you doing the things that you're doing? What is your reasoning behind how you spend your time? And if you find things on your daily routine that have no compelling reason behind them, then ask yourself why you spend your time in that way. Now, this exercise is not meant for you to beat yourself up, for you to feel bad about yourself, for you to feel guilty. That is not the purpose. We just need to make a determination. Is my life, is my daily routine, are my actions and my habits, my behaviors, my thoughts even, are they moving me towards a life of significance? Are they moving me towards becoming the best version of myself I can be? And if they're not, right? If you took each of your typical daily activities and they went on trial and they had to stand trial for their relevance to your life, would they be convicted or would they be not guilty? And it's an important question to ask ourselves. I'm not saying you should never allow yourself some free time to be distracted, but are your typical daily activities leading you where you want to go? So you're looking for distractions. You're looking for procrastination, things that you put off till the last minute on a consistent basis. You're looking for negative habits and behaviors. None of us are going to be perfect, but we've got to become more intentional and less aspirational. So if you've made a decision that you want to get up early every morning and do some sort of reading, some sort of meditation or prayer, some sort of movement or exercise, maybe meal prepping, whatever it might be. If you feel like that's something that you want to do, but instead you hit that snooze button so many times that now you have to fly out of bed and hurry up and get dressed and rush and stop at Starbucks and get some, $7 sugar-filled drink and a muffin so that you can get to your appointment. If that's what you've been experiencing, there's an opportunity to go from, I need to start getting up earlier. That's aspirational. I need to meal prep so I don't end up at a fast food restaurant for lunch. I need to exercise in the morning. I need to read in the morning. I need to pray or meditate. Like, those are aspirations. They're useless. We need to become intentional. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to happen every day without fail. But where can you be more intentional about your daily routine? Throughout the day, if you find yourself mindlessly scrolling through social media, or being distracted by news headlines, or checking sports or weather, whatever it might be, how can you become more intentional with the phone? I heard a joke this morning. I hope I can tell it correctly because it was pretty good. A woman finds a bottle, and when she rubs it, a genie popped out. True story, right? So a genie comes out of the bottle, and he tells the woman, your wish is my command, and you can have as many wishes as you want. And she said, "Oh, genie, I wish that my husband would only have eyes for me, that he would look at me all day, every day. I wish that my husband would be next to me all the time. Whether I'm awake or asleep, I wish that my husband would be right there next to me. And I wish that I would be the most important thing in my husband's life, that he would think about me all the time." The genie said, "Poof, you're a cell phone. Okay, you're a smartphone." So that's reality, right? So what are those things that are showing up in your life that are just completely distracting and keeping you from achieving a life of significance? What can you do differently this week to start moving from being aspirational about your life to being intentional about your life? Really asking yourself, right? I want you to reaffirm your values. If you haven't done that, go back and do that values exercise. If you did it, look at those values. Are you living a life in alignment with those values? Look at your business values. Is your business growing in accordance with those values, right? Find your voice. Where do you need to speak? Where do you need to speak the truth? To yourself, to someone you care about, to the people in your lives that may be negatively impacting your ability to live more intentionally and build a life of significance. Developing your character. Where can you celebrate some of your greatest character traits, and what are some of those that you need to really work on? Being fulfilled. Where are areas of your life that you need to do more celebrating and have more gratitude about, because they are immensely fulfilling? And how can you utilize some of the mindset and strategy that you use to have fulfillment in one area, and how can you apply that to other areas where you're less fulfilled? So I hope that this has been helpful. I want to open the floor to any thoughts, comments, or suggestions that you might have. And then next week we'll go on to the second section, which is why good intentions aren't enough, right? So today we talked about your life can be a great story. Next week we'll talk about why it's not good enough to just have good intentions, why you have to get intentional. So any questions, comments, thoughts on this, challenges? I'm curious.
I think it's a lot to think about, and I think that 30 minutes is probably going to be crucial to actually step back and look at what we're doing and see where we need to change.
Yes, 100%, Alice. I think that if you, and by the way, if you feel like you don't have 30 minutes to stop and do that exercise, that's your indication that it is imperative that you make the time to do it. That you make the time to do it. Because as we've been discussing, we all have desires, we all have goals, we all have aspirations, but oftentimes we just wish our lives away. You know, I wish I could do this, I would like to do that, or worse, I should do this, or I ought to do that. And as Coach Jim Mora, one-time coach of the New Orleans Saints, said, coulda, woulda, shoulda, like leave that all behind. So I agree. I think that's important. And if you don't have 30 minutes, that's your clue that you need to make 30 minutes. Yeah, anybody else? Thoughts on that exercise or anything that we've just, that I brought up today? Does anybody feel like there's an area of your life where you do feel like you're being very intentional and making a difference?
I think for me, I do, but I do it in time, then I get away from it, and then I go back to it. Need to be so much more consistent.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes, there's an area of your life where you're like, I've nailed this area. Maybe it's your health. You feel like, I've got a great diet, I move, I'm flexible and all of that. I have a client, I'm going to show you guys a picture. This is just blew my mind that she sent me this morning. They're on a family vacation. Imagine that, a realtor on a family vacation. And they're on a family vacation, and this is my client. Let's see if you can see that. She's upside down on a zip line.
Awesome.
Now,
Wow.
if you had seen this woman 2 years ago, you would have thought there's no way she's even getting on a zip line, because the fact of the matter is, as she informed me, there's a weight limit for zip line. There's a weight limit.
Yes.
And she would not have been able to zip line at all, much less zip line upside down over some canyon in Mexico. But she got very intentional about her health. And she says it, I've got 3 children. I want them to have me as their example of what health looks like. And so did she need to lose weight? Absolutely. But for her, the why was, I want my kids to know that it matters that you take care of yourself. It wasn't about being thin. It wasn't about looking hot. It wasn't about any of those things. It was about being intentional about her health so that she would have the energy, the strength to be able to go out and do that. And so she sent me a whole bunch of pictures of the whole family zip lining in Mexico, but she's the only one that's upside down. And she said, I overcame fears that I never thought I'd be able to overcome. And she wouldn't have done that if she hadn't lost all that weight, if she hadn't got intentional about her health. So the byproduct is she looks great. But the real truth is that she's living more into her potential because she has more energy. She can breathe, she can climb, she can run, and she can be a great example for her kids. So she could take that same level of intentionality and apply it to any other area of her life. Finances, her marriage, her business, whatever it might be. She can take that same level of intentionality that starts with a big why and then use that to make changes. All right. Anybody else? We've got a few more minutes here. Yeah. Okay. So somebody just posted, I wonder why sometimes we can do it in one area of our lives, but not another. Yeah. Why is that? Well, I would suggest that there's a good chance that the why is not big enough in the area where you're not doing it. Right? Does that make sense? For my client, her why about being healthy and setting a great example for her kids and being able to experience that. I mean, a few years ago, she'd have been standing on the side watching her 3 children and her husband just go nuts on these zip lines. And she would have been standing over there left out, probably sweating, standing there. But the why for her was so powerful that it allowed her to push through what was really tough in terms of weight loss and exercise and diet and all those things. So perhaps in the areas where we make the biggest changes, our why is powerful enough to pull us forward. So what we have to be able to do, I believe, in the areas where we're not able to be intentional is to find a why that's big enough to pull us through. Find a why, right? It's so important to realize that whether you're doing this for yourself or for somebody else. I mean, ultimately, my client is doing that work and she's done that work for herself. It's just that a lot of that is driven by her, her love for her family, right? So somebody wrote, sometimes if it involves others, it's more difficult than when we're dealing with something within ourselves. So you'd have to say more about that. But I do believe that, regardless of the situation you find yourself in, you can make a decision, right? Viktor Frankl said there's a space between stimulus and response. And in that space is where we make our choices. And it's in those choices that we find our freedom. He was in Auschwitz, but he made the choice every day to look for beauty, love, and truth. And he found those things. So most of us are never going to experience something that dramatic and that traumatic, but we can find within our experiences and our relationships the desire, the why, the values that we want to achieve, and we can find a way to manufacture a reason. Now, sometimes though, by the way, maybe you have a goal that's set that is a should. You think you should do something because other people do it, or because someone said that you should do it. And so you really have to examine, is that what I want? But ultimately, it still comes back to the question we started talking about this morning, which is, are you in the process of becoming the best version of you that you can be, and becoming the best you at whatever it is that you're doing, as a parent, as a spouse, as a business owner, as a salesperson, whatever it might be. So anyway, any other comments, anything else before I let you guys get on with your Tuesday? And please, please do me a favor, share this with people that you think could benefit from this. I think whether you're reading the book or not, or whether you're just following along, hopefully my goal is to inspire you to consider some things that maybe you just hadn't thought of. It's never my goal to make you feel ashamed or to shame you into doing something, but to inspire you to become more of who you're meant to be. It's all about inspiration and moving from aspiration to intentionality. So go do that this week, and let me know in the Mighty Network feed if you have any thoughts, comments, or what you learned as you went through this homework exercise. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.
Thank you.